Hey everybody, I wanted to share a story about my life and how I overcame going to prison, and tell a little bit about why I went to prison, uh, and also the possibility to change and to grow, and basically how I got out of prison with 8 felonies and got my realtor license. So when I was in my 20s, I fell, broke my wrist skateboarding, and I got addicted to pain meds. The doctors prescribed me a massive amount of them. Shattered my wrist, a little scar there, bone sticks out. It's kind of gnarly. The doctors did 2 reconstructive surgeries and rebuilt my wrist twice. And after being on pain pills for several years, I became dependent. I became physically dependent, and it cost me a lot of my life behind that. So that in of itself is a problem. What they're allowing to happen in the world today, it's the opioid epidemic is pretty serious, and it all stems from situations just like this. So what ended up happening to me is after several years of being on these pills, one of my coworkers came up to me one night after work and told me that he came over to my house, told me with his girlfriend and my fiance at the time, and his girlfriend, and their 4 kids came over and told us how they got pulled over the night before, and they were having money problems, and that they needed to borrow some money because they had to walk home with their 4 kids at midnight because their tag had expired. And he asked me to sell some of my pills to his roommate. So his roommate was not his roommate. His roommate was an undercover cop, and I ended up going to prison for 44.7 months for trafficking heroin was the charge at the time, because I sold him 30 pain pills. So I went to prison. It was obviously a horrible situation. It was my first time spending the night at jail, and now I had to do 44.7 months for trafficking heroin because I sold pills to an undercover. And it's a very difficult situation. Towards the end of my sentence, I had the opportunity to go into a faith-based dorm, which was a little better, a lot better quality of living versus being in the rougher parts of the prison system. And because I was in that situation, I had an opportunity to take a lot of classes on self-betterment, learned a lot about myself. I took every single class that they had available in an attempt to get the most that I could during a tough situation. I took classes. I took A+ certification for computer classes. I learned how to build furniture. I took advantage of every opportunity. I got my teacher's aid certificate and taught guys to get their GED while I was in there. I tried to make the best out of a bad situation. And being in the faith-based dorm, I was raised Catholic as a child, and we never really read the Bible much. So being in the faith-based dorm, obviously we had to go to church a certain amount of times every week. There was a lot of very spiritual guys in there. There's a lot of knuckleheads everywhere, but there's a few really decent dudes. And one of them was Bill. Bill, I was in a difficult time. I was upset with one of the guys in the dorm, and I was going to do something stupid. And I had justified it in my mind as to why I was going to do this thing. And I was, very upset about the situation. So Bill saw that I was mad and approached me and said, Vinny, you're not the only one that wants to beat this dude's ass. Don't do it, And he said, have you ever read Proverbs? I'm like, no, what's that have to do with anything? He said, Proverb talks about honor, integrity, loyalty. everything that I see in you. So he asked that I read it and put it into perspective before I do anything stupid. So being in that situation, I did what Bill suggested. Read Proverbs, got closer to God. There were some other things that were going on at the time, and I had a bit of a spiritual awakening, basically. From that experience, there were some other things that happened around that time. One of the other guys in there, Raphael, told me that, right after that spiritual awakening, Rafael Jimenez was probably one of the coolest people I've ever met in my life in prison. And he was very spiritual, had integrity. In one of the darkest points of my life, he was a beacon of light, and it made me just want that. The guy had integrity. He did the right thing at all times, and it showed. It's not something that he was open about, but the things that he did when nobody was looking were amazing. I wanted that. I wanted to be that kind of person. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I started to change. I started to really try to truly become a better person, and started to lose some of my old self and really want change. So anyways, long story short, I made it to work release. I met this dude that was there who was starting a website. We went to church together. He seemed like a pretty good guy. He used to be a millionaire. And I try to surround myself with successful people to learn as much as I can. I constantly am putting myself around people that have value so that it raises the value of myself. I think it's super important that we put good people around us at all times. So hanging out with this dude, Jerry, he was building a website, and he offered me a job working for him when I got out, because he knew that I had some real estate experience before. When I was younger, I was VP of a real estate investment company, and I did mortgages before the economy tanked in 2008. And Jerry offered me a job. He liked me. He saw that I was a good person. So I continued down that path. Went to school, got my Realtor license. And in doing that, I had to go in front of the Florida Real Estate Commission in Orlando. And when I got out of prison, I worked, saved my money, went to the classes, went to all the seminars I could. And when it came time to go in front of the Florida Real Estate Commission, because I had felonies, I had to explain everything to them. And I go down to Orlando. I walk into the room. There's about 40 realtors in the back of the room. All 40 realtors are in there for minor infractions. Nobody's in there for anything serious. It's like the name on their website is in the wrong spot, or they got the phone number and it doesn't say office, it says cell, or something silly like that. So everybody's in there for different reasons. When they called up my name in the very beginning, they said, Vincent Fusco for approval of licensure. And as I'm walking up to the podium, it sounded like a prize fighter walking to the ring. Vincent Fusco, burglary, battery, interfering with a 911 call, trafficking heroin, possession of cocaine with intent to sell. And all the realtors that were in the back of the room obviously were like, Jesus Christ, this guy has all these charges. That's horrible, So they're all in the back kind of like oohing and ahhing as I'm walking up there, and I can hear it. And I'm walking up to the podium, and I had an opportunity to speak to the members of the board that evening and tell my side of the story. So I explained to them that I got addicted to pain meds because of an accident, and once that happened, made some poor choices, and that God gave me an opportunity. I have a broker that wanted to hire me, and real estate is something I've always loved. And the lady that was in the head of the board, her hand shot up like lightning. She's like, I've heard enough. And at the time, I was just like, I'm dead. There's no way. I'm screwed. My parents were sitting next to me. They split up when I was like 7. So they're sitting next to each other, and they don't get along great. So it was kind of, everybody was there, and she's like, She's like, all in favor for approval of licensure. And her hand was up, and the other 12 board members' hands shot up like lightning, and they all approved it. And I was honestly a little shocked. And because I didn't give up, and because I fought through that experience, and I made it to that day, I was blessed enough to be in a situation where all that hard work had paid off, and being honest and real about my situation paid off. And as all 12 board members' hands shot up like lightning, all those realtors that were oohing and ahhing when I came in, they were now all standing up and clapping. And I looked over at my parents next to me, and I think it was one of the proudest moments in my life, because they were both crying and they were both looking at me with pride. And it was an amazing experience. And I'll never forget that day. It was one of the best days of my life. So I thought that was a cool story. I wanted to share it with you guys. I love you. I hope you're having a great evening. Talk to you soon.